Shaolin sits alone in a dark room with his gaming headset on. He is a 23-year-old recent graduate who makes a living by power leveling accounts for other players. A victory screen flashes on his monitor, and he leans back to stretch. His life outside of gaming is not going well. He remembers his father yelling at him and calling him useless. To prove his family wrong, Shaolin packed his bags and moved out. He wanted to find out what he was actually good at in the real world. Just 2 days later, a delivery worker drops off a strange black package in the middle of the night. Shaolin takes the package inside and rips open the top. A surge of dark blue magical energy shoots out. A system screen appears, announcing that he has been accepted as a probationary freshman at Dawn Academy. The screen states that his identity verification is complete and initiates a forced teleportation. The energy completely wraps around him and drags him out of his apartment. When Shaolin opens his eyes, he is lying on the floor. He slowly sits up, rubs his head, and sees about 200 other people gathered around. They are all wearing regular clothes and look completely confused. Many think they have been kidnapped. Suddenly, a man in a military uniform stands over Shaolin. He mocks Shaolin for sleeping on the floor for over 3 hours while everyone else was awake. The crowd gets restless, and they start shouting at the man, demanding to be let go and threatening to call the police. The man grabs the handle of his sword and draws the blade. A burst of purple energy surrounds his body. He tells the crowd to shut up and complains that the admissions department always recruits useless people. Once everyone is quiet, the man introduces himself as Qin Chuan. He is the instructor for first year Class 7 at Dawn Academy. He tells the crowd they are the chosen ones. Here, they will train their bodies and minds. If they survive, they will earn the right to enter something called the New World. He promises that if they succeed, they can get wealth, authority, and even immortality. He then orders everyone to step forward, take an ID plate, and go through a potential evaluation. The students form a line and step onto a glowing blue scanning platform one by one. A machine analyzes their bodies and displays a total attribute score. The first few students score around 24 to 32 points. Qin Chuan looks at the scores and gets frustrated. He says they are all way too average, and only 1 or 2 people in the room have stats worth looking at. Finally, it is Shaolin's turn. He steps onto the blue platform, and the scanner washes over him. The other students finished their scans in about 6 seconds, but Shaolin stood there for almost a full minute. The machine finally beeps. Qin Chuan looks at his tablet. He stares at the screen with wide eyes. Shaolin's base strength is 2, his agility is 2, his intelligence is 2, and his constitution is 3. His total attribute value is exactly 9 points. Qin Chuan grabs his face in anger. He shouts that he has never seen starting stats this bad in his entire time at the academy. He calls Shaolin a once-in-a-lifetime piece of deadweight and a complete waste of resources. Shaolin glares back at him. People have called him trash his entire life, and he refuses to let some numbers on a screen tell him his worth. He catches the gold ID card that Qin Chuan throws at him and says he is going to take the entrance test anyway. Qin Chuan chuckles, saying he will wait for reality to teach Shaolin a lesson. A woman with long black hair and glasses speaks up. Her name is Gu Xiaoyue. Qin Chuan respects her because she has the highest initial stats in the entire group. She asks what price they have to pay for the wealth and power he promised. Qin Chuan explains that credits and exchange points are the currency in the school, and they can trade them for whatever they want. He then tells everyone to hold their ID cards and think of the words to view their attribute values. Shaolin grips his gold card and follows the instructions. A system window appears in front of him. It lists his name, his low stats, and his combat ratings, which are at the lowest possible level. Then he sees the lifespan section. It shows his natural lifespan is 83 years. Since he is 23, he has exactly 60 years left. A warning flashes below. It says that each time a student dies, 10 years will be deducted from their remaining lifespan. If their lifespan reaches 0, they will die in real life. The other students see the same warning, and panic spreads through the room. Shaolin realizes he can only afford to die 6 times. As he starts to panic, the system screen changes, and a new message tells him an abnormal fluctuation has been detected. A hidden talent has been unlocked. Shaolin looks around and realizes he is the only one who can see this message. The system shows that his talent greatly enhances his learning ability. It has a passive effect that increases his learning efficiency to 100%. It also has an active effect that lets him completely copy any ability with an F rating or below from another person. The copied ability lasts for 3 minutes, and he can use this skill once every 7 days. The system notes that there is no record of this talent in the database, so Shaolin gets to name it. Since it helps him learn fast and copy others, he decides to call it Top Student. The system accepts the name and finishes its evaluation. His hidden talent is graded at the SS rank. Shaolin's physical stats might be terrible, but this secret talent is exactly what he needs to survive the academy. A student yells about only having 9 years of lifespan left, and wonders if it is a system bug. So Qin Chuan angrily smacks him hard on the head, telling him to use his brain. He explains that dying just once will completely drain his remaining 9 years, causing him to permanently die. The student nervously rubs his sore head while Qinchuan tells the quiet crowd that, outside the academy, lifespan is just for survival, but inside, it becomes a valuable resource used to completely change their fate. Qinchuan smiles and points upward, promising that even true immortality is possible if they gather enough credits. Gu Xiaoyue pushes up her glasses and calmly asks if this magical rule works everywhere. Qinchuan looks back at her and confirms that, once they become students, the law automatically applies, as long as they are still on Earth. Then, he loudly yells at the nervous crowd to stop their useless chatter before declaring that the entrance test starts right now. He snaps his fingers while raising his arm high, and he loudly orders everyone in the crowd to stay exactly where they are without moving, as a system prompt announces the start of a teleportation countdown. The countdown finally reaches 1, and the entire massive crowd is suddenly engulfed in bright purple magical flames that instantly teleport all the students away. Qinchuan stands alone, rubbing the back of his head in extreme annoyance, and he complains aloud about his bad luck. Not having a single gifted student in his batch means he will get a terrible advisor evaluation. Suddenly, a loud laugh echoes in the empty room, and a man smoking a cigar walks up, calling him Old Chin. The man grins proudly, while bragging that his own class received both an A rank and a B rank gifted student, before asking how Qinchuan's group turned out. The man casually throws his arm around Qinchuan's shoulder. Qinchuan defensively claims his class has a genius, with over 40 initial attribute points, but the man just smiles and argues that high stats mean nothing compared to real talent. The man takes a puff of his cigar and mentions a wild rumor about a SS rank freshman appearing last year, but Qinchuan angrily swats the man's arm away and loudly insists that the rumor is completely debunked. He believes there is absolutely no record of it in the central database, which clearly proves to him that SS talents do not even exist. On the other side, the students teleport deep inside a creepy goblin nest, and they immediately start groaning while covering their noses because of a terrible stench in the air. Xiaolin pinches his nose, looking completely disgusted, while a system screen suddenly pops up in front of him. He rubs his chin thoughtfully while reading the entrance test details, which explain that their main quest is to escape the forest to a safe zone within 3 hours, while optional quests include killing goblins, or a Goblin King for extra points. Then, the screen offers a starter pack containing a random weapon while giving a friendly reminder that there is no death penalty for this specific test, causing the other frightened students to look at their own screens and cheer in pure relief. Xiaolin reaches out and taps the glowing gift box icon on his display. Dark purple energy instantly swirls around his hand as a wooden beginner staff with a glowing purple crystal materializes into his grasp, while a prompt announces he unlocked basic staff mastery. He stares at his new magical weapon, thinking that this feels exactly like playing a video game. He swings the staff down hard and strikes the ground, causing a bright purple energy explosion that instantly shatters the rocky floor. A system window appears, showing he gained experience points for basic staff mastery, so he smiles happily and realizes that simply attacking with the weapon increases his experience. He stands confidently with his glowing staff, thinking that his hidden learning talent will make his skills level up twice as fast as normal people. But suddenly, he groans loudly and grabs his head in pain. A system warning appears, stating his mana is insufficient to cast another energy orb, so he realizes his base stats are too low and his small mana pool severely limits his magic. He looks over his shoulder and sees a student confidently holding a giant broadsword while cheering about his new swordsmanship skills. Xiaolin watches the other scattered students practicing with their new swords and bows on the rocky path, while he silently thinks that dropping untrained people straight into a dangerous test will definitely cause many deaths. He looks at his large wooden staff and decides his best choice is to swap for a physical weapon so he can rely on his special learning potential. Suddenly, he turns his head when he notices the refined girl, Gu Xiaoyue, standing nearby holding a long silver dagger. She calmly looks at her shiny blade and asks if he wants to trade weapons, because she knows magic spells cost mana and, with her high intelligence stat, it is a complete waste to just swing a blade around. She looks directly at Xiaolin, saying the staff is much more suitable for her, and she bluntly tells him that he does not look suited for magic at all. Xiaolin smiles and introduces himself. Gu Xiaoyu calmly asks if he is willing to trade, and then they reach out their hands to swap weapons, while Xiaolin admits the staff requires 5 mana points to use, which he simply does not have right now. A system window immediately pops up, announcing he obtained a beginner dagger and unlocked basic dagger mastery. Xiaolin confidently grips the blade, saying it feels much better in his hand, and he looks back at Gu Xiaoyu, who is now holding the purple magic staff. He silently thinks it is surprising she proposed the trade, before he smiles warmly and calls her name, asking if she wants to maybe team up. A muscular man carrying a massive broadsword suddenly steps right between Shaolin and Gu Xiaoyu, asking to team up with the pretty girl. He proudly introduces himself as Wang Dalin, while boasting that his physical stats are all very high. He points back at Shaolin, calling him a weak pretty boy, and promises the girl guaranteed safety if they party up together. Shaolin looks annoyed while gripping his new dagger, and Gu Xiaoyu just stares blankly at the man in complete silence. Wang Dalin gets very angry when he hears the other students whispering about him getting immediately rejected. Wang Dalin aggressively grabs Shaolin tightly by the shirt collar and yells that he will violently show him what real ability looks like right now. But Shaolin just smirks calmly and tells the angry man that he will not get the chance to show off. Suddenly, a goblin violently slashes the large man directly across the face from behind, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Wang Dalin screams out in intense pain and grabs his face, just as the ugly monster leaps forward to attack him again. Wang Dalin forcefully swings his giant broadsword to completely slice the flying goblin in half. Then, he just stands there, panting heavily while cursing out loud that he was almost completely wiped out just now. Wang Dalin aggressively points his finger at Shaolin while yelling that he just wanted to see him make a fool of himself over a measly monster. But suddenly, Wang Dalin looks confused and turns his head as a massive horde of goblins with glowing yellow eyes emerges from the bushes. The students start screaming in panic as the monsters violently rush forward to attack them, and blood splatters everywhere. Shaolin fiercely stabs his silver dagger straight into an attacking goblin, causing bright yellow sparks to fly. While he realizes this nightmare is actually real, he notices the terrible smell of the monsters as another girl is brutally attacked, and then he sees Gu Xiaoyu powerfully swinging her magic staff, with bright purple lightning crackling all around her. Xiaolin quickly understands that, even though this forest environment is made of virtual data, every single painful sensation in this deadly test is absolutely real. He realizes this is nothing like a simple video game, because normal people are just lambs to the slaughter, even with weapons. So, he watches closely as a student points out that the monsters do not attack anyone hiding inside a nearby cave. The students quickly rush into the tunnel to escape the deadly horde, and Shaolin follows them inside, while a system screen shows 29 minutes of novice protection remaining, so he realizes the cave will not stay safe forever. He grips his dagger tightly while telling himself to calm down and properly analyze the situation, because he absolutely refuses to just sit back and wait to die. And then, he begins forcefully swinging his blade through the air inside the dim cave. A system screen shows that he gained dagger mastery experience, so he realizes he only earns points if his physical movements are proper and forceful. He stands holding his weapon and decides to use his special hidden talent to rapidly raise his basic combat skills as much as possible before the protective shield completely disappears. But soon, the blue timer ticks down to just 2 short minutes left. The other huddled students in the cave start panicking again, as they realize the goblins will resume their violent attacks very soon. A wounded student cries out in extreme fear that their dull novice weapons cannot cut the tough monsters, so fighting back just feels like throwing their own lives away. Gu Xiaoyu sits calmly against the cave wall, holding her magic staff while quietly watching Shaolin practicing. As he pants heavily while sweating from the intense exercise, she stands up to tell him that his actions have absolutely no meaning. Her calculations show it takes about an hour to level up a skill, so the short time limit prevents anyone from doing it properly. Shaolin looks back at her, thinking about how incredibly smart she is, but he just smiles to himself. His special top student talent makes his learning speed much faster, and a system window appears showing his dagger mastery is at 99 points, so he knows he is just about to hit level 2. He thanks Gu Xiaoyu for the helpful reminder, while claiming he is just getting a feel for the weapon, and then he asks if she has any analysis on the goblins outside. This causes her to look slightly surprised that he noticed her observing the monsters, so he explains it is exactly like checking the starting area in a video game before fighting. However, she bluntly replies that she does not play games. Shaolin just sweat drops and agrees before he starts biting his thumb in deep thought. He remembers that the goblins have high attack but low defense, with weak spots on their eyes and throats. He realizes the true hardest part is simply overcoming the deep fear of fighting. As he looks around at all the terrified students cowering in the dim cave, he silently concludes that just hiding is definitely not what the academy wants them to do. A terrified girl sits on the ground, crying and hugging her knees. Shaolin notes they only have 2 minutes of protection left, so they need to head out, and Gu Xiaoyu agrees they cannot just run away. They start walking toward the exit, but Wang Dalin suddenly steps in front of them with an angry face. He asks where they are going and tells Gu Xiaoyu not to go with a useless person, because he wants to find a way for everyone to live. He aggressively points at Shaolin, saying trash like him should just be left to die. Gu Xiaoyu calmly adjusts her glasses and explains that the real challenge only officially starts when they leave the cave, causing Wang Delin to yell back in pure frustration. Wang Delin angrily asks how they managed to summon a hidden boss right after leaving the cave. Xiaolin calmly explains there must be a specific trigger condition, like the number of surviving students or the amount of goblins killed. Gu Xiaoyue touches her chin thoughtfully, adding that the academy would not give them only a few minutes to fight a boss. Xiaolin agrees and deduces that killing a certain number of monsters is what summons the boss, but a nervous girl stammers and asks why they do not just complete the mandatory escape quest instead of fighting such a strong monster. Xiaolin turns to the frightened group and firmly reminds them that failing this specific test has 0 penalties and no lifespan deduction. He opens his hand and confidently asks why they would not go all out to earn more credits and exchange points while they still have the chance. A student clenches his fist in agreement, saying they might as well get some real combat experience. Then, Wang Dalin aggressively pushes past and loudly declares that if they are actually going to fight, everyone will finally see the true difference in their initial attributes. He looks down at Gu Xiaoyu, asking exactly how high her stats could possibly be. Gu Xiaoyu calmly pushes up her glasses with one finger and plainly answers, 46. This causes Wang Dalin to freeze in place with wide eyes, sweat dropping down his face as he stares at her in complete shock, wondering how her stats could be that incredibly high while the rest of the students watch quietly from behind. Xiaolin looks highly surprised, realizing her stats are more than 5 times higher than his own. Gu Xiaoyu tells everyone to follow her commands from now on, because working together is their only hope to win. Wang Dalin grits his teeth and agrees to be the forward guard since she is the strongest, while a girl tells the ranged weapon users to act as back support. Then, Gu Xiaoyue glances back at Xiaolin, who just smiles confidently and tells her that he will handle drawing the monster's attention so they can easily snipe the escaping goblins. Privately, he silently thinks he must gather more information to survive the boss quest because his own stats are just too low. Finally, the group marches out of the cave together. Wang Dalin aggressively swings his massive broadsword to slice the goblins while yelling at them to die. The archer girl pulls back her bowstring to shoot, but suddenly, a goblin quickly dashes forward with sharp claws and violently attacks her. Xiaolin charges with his copied shockwave skill. The Goblin King raises its massive club to smash the ground. Xiaolin runs directly toward the monster. He realizes the boss uses both hands to trigger the shockwave, but his copied version only needs a weapon strike. He knows his attack will land first because of their height difference. A system screen confirms the shockwave skill is activated. The Goblin King swings its heavy club down. Xiaolin forcefully thrusts his silver sword forward and strikes the giant hand. A massive burst of green and purple energy explodes on impact. Xiaolin realizes that boss skills can actually be interrupted. The monster is pushed back. Xiaolin smiles confidently because his plan worked perfectly. Xiaolin looks at a system screen showing a 30-second cooldown for his shockwave skill. The Goblin King lunges forward with its sharp claws. The cooldown timer ticks down to 22 seconds. A massive purple explosion violently goes off. Gu Xiaoyue watches from a distance. She thinks she only has one magic shot left and wonders how Xiaolin interrupted the giant boss with his low stats. The cooldown timer shows 16 seconds remaining. The Goblin King raises a huge boulder high over its head to crush Xiaolin. Xiaolin realizes he cannot dodge the massive attack. He smirks and decides to stand his ground. He raises his left arm and creates a pixelated blue shield. Gu Xiaoyue screams his name in panic. The giant boulder smashes into his shield with a massive crash. The dust clears and Xiaolin is still standing. His left arm is badly injured and shedding blue data pixels, but he says he is fine. The cooldown timer drops to 10 seconds, and then 7. The Goblin King winds up for another heavy physical punch. Xiaolin knows his shockwave has a very short range. He quickly slides across the ground directly underneath the giant monster's center of mass. The cooldown timer reaches 3 seconds. Xiaolin violently thrusts his sword upward. He yells for the monster to stop. A bright purple aura explodes from his blade. A system screen announces the skill cooldown is finished and the shockwave is activated. The powerful purple blast hits the Goblin King from below. Xiaolin shouts Gu Xiaoyue's name. She aims her staff and fires a massive purple energy beam directly at the monster. The magic beam strikes the Goblin King squarely in the head. Its red health bar instantly drops to 0. The monster's head begins to dissolve into blue data pixels. System screens announce the Goblin King is slain, and the optional quest is complete. Xiaolin drops his sword on the rocky ground. He pants heavily and says the monster is finally down. He falls forward onto the dirt, completely exhausted. He thinks about the mandatory safe zone quest as his vision slowly fades to black. Gu Xiaoyu says it looks like they are not going to make it. In a modern meeting room, the head of the admissions department, he reviews the freshman test results for over 1,000 students. He announces the number of students placed in each rank. He reveals that 15 students achieved an S-Rank rating. The other instructors are shocked because S-Rank requires completing all 3 quests and surviving the test. The instructors brag about having gifted students in their classes. The head advisor confirms there are 13 gifted students this year, the highest quality in 10 years. Qinchuan sits at the table looking highly annoyed. He thinks his class is the only one without any gifted students. The head advisor looks at Qinchuan and smiles. He announces that Qinchuan's class set 2 school records despite having no gifted students. He explains that 2 non-gifted students in his class received S ranks. He also reveals they set new records for the highest intelligence stat and the lowest combined attributes in academy history. A digital chart shows Xiaolin's incredibly low stats compared to Gu Xiaoyu's massive stats. The head advisor laughs and says even the principal noticed this strange pair of students. A system screen announces the entrance test is complete. Xiaolin wakes up standing in a bright white hallway. He looks at his hands and realizes his wounds are completely healed. He cheers that he actually survived. A system screen shows his final results. He completed all 3 quests and earned an S-Rank rating with credits and exchange points. Xiaolin remembers passing out in the forest. He realizes Gu Xiaoyue must have carried him to the safe zone to complete the first quest. He looks over and sees her standing nearby. The archer girl runs up to him. She happily thanks both of them for helping her get an A rank. She admits she was killed by the boss's area attack and asks if they defeated the Goblin King. Xiaolin confirms they did. The archer girl smiles brightly. Wang Dalin stands nearby with his arms crossed. He angrily says it was just dumb luck. He claims Xiaolin would have died without Gu Xiaoyu's help. Qinchuan walks past the students. Gu Xiaoyu turns around and looks at Xiaolin. She adjusts her glasses and tells him she wants to talk to him alone about their battle. He thinks about how closely she observed him during the test. He thanks her for her help. Gu Xiaoyue explains that the smart brain system in their nameplates has a communication function. She suggests they add each other as friends to stay in contact. Xiaolin agrees. Gu Xiaoyu tells him to silently think the words smart brain to open the basic panel. Xiaolin thinks the words and a glowing blue screen appears in front of him. It shows his basic information, including his student ID. Gu Xiaoyu asks for his ID number. He tells her it is 201235. A friend request from Gu Xiaoyue pops up on his screen and he presses accept. Qinchuan walks down the hallway and angrily yells at all the students who failed the entrance test to assemble. He tells everyone to use their map navigation and head to the central playground. Xiaolin opens his map and sees the route. He wonders if Qinchuan noticed something about Gu Xiaoyu's high rank. They walk outside to a massive green sports field filled with hundreds of students. Qinchuan orders the students to line up by class and stop crowding together. A young man with blue hair stands next to a floating blue crystal. He introduces himself as the student union president. He welcomes the new students and explains that the principal will arrive a bit late. Suddenly, a loud roar echoes through the air. A massive shadow covers the field. The students look up in shock as a giant purple dragon lands right in front of them. Xiaolin sweats and realizes his body is completely frozen from fear. Gu Xiaoyue trembles and says it is an instinctive biological fear keeping them from moving. An old man with a long white beard steps down from the dragon's back. He apologizes for being late. A system screen identifies him as the principal of Dawn Academy. The student union president tells him this entrance is a bit too grand. The principal argues that he is not showing off. He explains he was in a hurry and had to use the dragon for fast transport. The dragon roars again, scaring the students. The principal scolds the giant beast and threatens to turn it into a sofa if it does it again. Xiaolin stares at the old man and realizes he is the only person with the authority to view his hidden talent. The principal taps his staff on the ground and a large purple magic circle appears underneath him. He explains this is amplification magic, so everyone can hear him clearly. He acknowledges that many students were brought here under strange and frustrating circumstances. He blames the admissions department for delivering the notices late at night. The principal looks out at the massive crowd of students. He asks them who they are and what they are doing here. He points his staff and declares that they are colonizers. He explains that humans are not alone in the universe, and that creatures like goblins and dragons prove there are other worlds out there to conquer. Normal lives ended when they opened their acceptance letters. He promises them power, knowledge, and even immortality in the new world. He announces a new rule for this year. The top 3 students in the first-year exam will be allowed to enter the new world early. The blue-haired student union president steps forward and says this is too dangerous for freshmen. The principal glares at him sharply, and the president quickly takes back his words. The principal dismisses the students. Xiaolin thinks to himself that his main goal is to use the academy's resources to get stronger. Advisor Qinchuan calls his name and tells him to stay behind. Qinchuan explains that the top performer in the entrance test usually becomes the class president. Since Gu Xiaoyu turned down the position, Xiaolin must take it. He tells Xiaolin that being president gives extra credits and resources. He says this is a lifeline for someone with terrible stats like Xiaolin. A system screen appears and officially appoints Xiaolin as the acting class president of Class 7. Xiaolin goes to the student dormitory. He talks to a girl at the front desk. She warns him that the doors lock at 7 in the evening and staying out overnight will cost him credits. When she sees his system screen, she realizes he is a class president. Her attitude completely changes, and she becomes very friendly. She introduces herself as Zhang Tingting, a sophomore. She hands him a green freshman uniform and a gold ID plate. She personally shows him to his room. She explains that normal freshmen share a room, but class presidents get a private room. Xiaolin realizes that the academy is strictly divided by status and strength. Xiaolin sits in his room and opens his system screen to pick his classes. A long list of courses appears. He sees that he must pick mandatory classes, 1 combat class, and 3 secondary classes. He knows his base stats are very low, so he needs to improve quickly. He decides to rely on his top student talent, which doubles his learning speed. He chooses basic swordsmanship for combat, basic physical training for survival, and basic meditation for mental focus. He confirms his choices and notes that strength is everything in this place. The next day, Xiaolin is at the training grounds, swinging a wooden sword at a wooden post. He sweats heavily as he practices. A system screen pops up showing he gained 2 experience points for basic swordsmanship. He focuses on putting power into his waist instead of his wrist. Because of his top student talent, his learning efficiency is doubled. His basic swordsmanship quickly reaches level 3, and his strength attribute goes up. He realizes he leveled up twice as fast as a normal person. Nearby, the other students are crying and dropping their swords because they are completely exhausted. The substitute instructor, a woman with long pink hair named Cheng Na, yells at them. She calls the freshmen weak and orders them to keep swinging until their skill reaches level 3. The students complain that it will take 4 hours of non-stop swinging to reach that level. Xiaolin walks up to Instructor Cheng. He tells her his skill has already reached level 3. He asks if he can leave early to attend his meditation class. Instructor Cheng glares at him. She points out that the class started less than 2 hours ago and asks if he is messing with her. The instructor recognizes Xiaolin as the student with single-digit stats who received an S-rank evaluation. She accuses him of leeching off his teammates and tells him to find a better excuse to skip class. She refuses to believe his basic swordsmanship is already at level 3. Xiaolin tells her to check his data panel to prove it. Cheng Na scoffs at the idea of looking at data. A system warning appears stating she is activating high-level teaching permissions. She transports them to the all-system combat simulation arena. The ground is covered in giant bones and skulls. Xiaolin looks around in shock. Cheng Na explains that the academy spent astronomical resources to build this training space. She tells him that he will not truly die here, but all of his senses and the pain are completely real. She points to a group of purple skeleton soldiers and says they have the same strength as the goblins from the entrance exam. Cheng Na challenges him to prove his skill in actual combat. She promises that if he clears the dungeon, he can leave her class early today, and in the future, a system window appears, showing the dungeon objectives. Xiaolin must either survive for 40 minutes or kill 20 skeleton soldiers to clear it. He thinks Cheng Na is a maniac for forcing a freshman into this situation. He grips his sword and decides that instead of stalling for time, he will choose to kill them. He charges forward and slashes a skeleton. A system screen shows 1 out of 20 skeletons slain. Xiaolin calculates that by aiming for their weak points, it takes an average of 2 strikes to kill 1 skeleton. He realizes he needs to make 40 accurate strikes to win. Cheng Na watches him from a distance. She is surprised that he dared to charge in instead of begging her to close the dungeon. She watches his combat style and notices that his footwork, force generation, and slashing angles are very good. She thinks to herself that his movements are crisp, and his judgment is accurate. She admits he is much better than the students who just swing blindly, even though his base stats are terrible. She suddenly realizes he might have enrolled in both swordsmanship and meditation courses at the same time just to force his stats to grow. Xiaolin pants heavily as he fights. A system screen shows he has slain 13 skeletons with 28 minutes remaining. Cheng Na watches him struggle and thinks it is already a miracle he made it this far. She decides it is time for him to face reality and give up. Suddenly, a system screen pops up showing Xiaolin activating a level 1 skill called Heavy Slash. His sword glows with bright purple energy. He destroys several skeletons in a single massive strike, pushing his kill count to 16. Cheng Na is shocked and wonders how a freshman already has this skill. Xiaolin continues his fast attacks, quickly raising the kill count to 20 out of 20. He stands surrounded by broken bones, panting heavily. He looks back at Cheng Na and tells her he completed the requirement. Cheng Na stares at him in silence. She realizes that for a freshman to get an S-rank evaluation, it was definitely not just pure luck. In the student council office, a girl hands the president the sorted files for the freshmen who received S and A rank evaluations. She tells him there is a specific class schedule he needs to look at. The president asks if there is a problem. The girl explains that a freshman's course selection is extremely bizarre. She says the freshman named Xiao Lin selected every single course available at the academy. The president looks completely shocked. At 12:04 p.m. inside the Dawn Academy infirmary, Xiao Lin lies unconscious in a white hospital bed. A man sits on a stool beside him and tells Nana that this is not the first time she has treated freshmen so harshly. Nana defends herself, saying she did not mean to mess him up and did not expect a freshman to last that long in the simulation. She crosses her arms angrily and asks the man if he has a problem with her teaching methods. He calmly explains that the students just enrolled, so she does not need to be so hardcore with them. Nana argues back that she must be even stricter precisely because they are freshmen, stating firmly that coddling them is the real cruelty. The man closes his eyes in silence, and Nana looks down quietly. Suddenly, Xiao Lin groans and slowly opens his eyes. The man leans forward happily and announces that he is finally awake. Xiao Lin sits up in the bed looking tired and asks if he is in the infirmary. The man confirms this and explains that the wealthy academy has top-notch facilities. He tells Xiao Lin that experiencing a true death in the simulation field causes a normal side effect of weakness, even though his physical stamina and mental energy did not actually drop. The man smiles and asks Xiao Lin how he feels after hearing he passed out from sheer exhaustion. Xiao Lin sits up in his bed and replies that he feels much better, though his muscles are just a bit sore. The man nods, telling him to rest a bit so he will be fine. Suddenly, the man closes his eyes and calmly orders Nana to leave the room because he wants to speak with Xiao Lin alone. Nana looks completely shocked and angrily asks why she has to leave. She bites her lip in frustration, huffs, and finally agrees to go as she turns away. Before leaving, she stops and yells back at Xiao Lin. She calls him a punk and states that she is not someone who breaks her promises, so his request to leave class early is officially approved. However, she strictly warns him that people who try to train in both magic and martial arts usually end up destroying themselves. She then walks out and loudly slams the door shut behind her. Xiao Lin watches her leave and silently thinks to himself that this senior does not actually seem like the cruel she-demon everyone imagines her to be. The man then clears his throat to get Xiao Lin's attention and says it is time to talk business. He looks directly at Xiao Lin and asks if he read the freshman handbook, specifically pointing out that the book explicitly warns students against taking too many courses at once. The man explains the academy's class structure to Xiao Lin. He states that swordsmanship, movement, and physical training belong to the physical branch. He then explains that meditation, spells, and perception belong to the magic branch. He tells Xiao Lin that these two systems have completely different growth paths. The man explains that during the first year, learning both magic and martial arts can make a student good at all types of combat. The man warns that as the classes get harder, each branch splits into countless different paths. He says that by the second and third year, training in both systems will require 2 to 7 times more energy and time than other students. Xiao Lin sits in his bed, smiles slightly, and calmly says that he already knows this. The man looks surprised. Xiao Lin looks very determined and compares the courses to a large tree. He explains that the further you go up the tree, the more branches appear and split. He admits that training in both magic and martial arts will definitely demand much more effort. However, he clenches his fist tightly on his lap and confidently declares that he still wants to give it a shot. He silently thinks to himself that with his hidden top student talent, he can absolutely pull this off. The man looks at him and starts to speak, but a glowing blue digital screen suddenly pops up with a beep. The screen shows a new message from the academy principal. The man sweats and looks slightly awkward. He stands up from his chair and tells Xiao Lin that since the principal has already approved his large course selection, he will stop trying to change his mind. He turns to walk away and tells Xiao Lin that his schedule needs to be reorganized. He promises Xiao Lin will get a new timetable by tomorrow morning and tells him to just focus on resting for today. Xiao Lin thanks the president and watches him leave. He looks serious and silently wonders how the principal knew about his class selection so quickly. He wonders if the principal noticed his special hidden talent. In a large grand building glowing in the bright sunlight, inside a lavish room, the principal stands alone, looking out a massive window. She smiles and playfully asks the principal why he looks so sad. She jokes that he should tell her his problems so she can laugh at them. The principal looks back over his shoulder. He tells her that she has been watching too much anime lately. He sternly reminds her that she is the central brain of the academy, not a mascot. The girl smiles and says he is still bored even after 100 years. She floats next to him and notes that this year's freshmen are very strong. She asks if finding a double S-rank gifted student makes him happy. The principal explains that a normal person usually has about 40 total attribute points. He states that the academy only accepts people with 20 points or more. He then points out that Shaolin only has 9 total points, making him an utterly ordinary person. The girl looks surprised. She explains that special talents are only detected after a student enrolls. She says this means Shaolin should never have received an admission notice in the first place. She asks if the admissions department made a mistake and accidentally invited a normal commoner. The principal looks very serious and says that is exactly the problem. He explains that he just checked the official system records. He reveals to the surprised holographic girl that there is absolutely no admission record for Shaolin in the system at all. The principal explains that 1,360 students were admitted this year, but the central computer only has 1,359 admission notices on record. The girl agrees that in all the years since Dawn Academy was founded, a missing record like this has never happened before. The principal asks her if, as the main control program, she knows exactly what is going on. The girl confirms that 1,360 admission notices were definitely issued to this year's freshmen, so there was absolutely no mistake in the total number. The principal commands her to pull up the exact admission notice sent to Shaolin right now so he can review it. The girl smiles playfully and tells him she would love to cooperate, but then she states that he simply does not have the proper clearance to view that specific notice. The principal looks completely shocked and angrily yells out in confusion. The girl maintains her smile and explains that someone with a much higher authority level than him personally issued the admission notice to Shaolin. The principal's eyes narrow as he realizes what she means. He sighs and decides to completely drop the matter for now. He then uses his highest authority level to immediately back up and encrypt all of Shaolin's personal data. He firmly commands the girl to ensure that absolutely no one can view Shaolin's information without his direct permission. The girl bows her head and confirms the order. The girl bows her head and calmly replies that she will follow the principal's command. She confirms that all 1,359 student admission notices and files have now been fully encrypted, meaning only the principal and those with higher authority can view or modify them. She specifically notes that the special top-level protection for the 1,360th admission notice cannot be modified. She looks at the principal and asks if he is trying to protect the missing admission notice from someone finding out. The principal crosses his arms and confirms her suspicion. He reveals that he is heading back to the New World tomorrow and explains that he does not want irrelevant people interfering with this specific student while he is gone. He tells the girl that he is leaving the academy in her hands and asks her to keep a close eye on Shaolin for him. She nods and agrees to do so. The next day, in a large, bright cafeteria, a girl sits at a table and talks to Shaolin, who is now wearing a blue school uniform. She casually mentions hearing rumors about a guy who passed out during class yesterday, and even alarmed the student council president. She realizes the rumor is actually about Shaolin. He quietly eats his food with chopsticks and thinks to himself that the rumor spread very quickly. He admits out loud that Instructor Cheng Na is pretty scary, and confirms that she really did knock him out. Shaolin asks the girl if there is a way to use the full system simulation field outside of regular classes. The girl looks at him in surprise and asks if he hasn't checked out his class president privileges yet. A system screen appears showing a student connected to a large network. The girl explains that normal students need a teacher's permission to enter the field, but as class president, he can manage class funds and directly submit requests to the student union. She says that as long as the student union approves it, he can enter the field on his own. Shaolin opens a system screen and quickly searches the menu to submit a request. He taps his finger on an application option. He reads out loud that he can apply for the simulation field, but it requires approval from his advisor, class president, and the student union. The girl sips her drink and casually says that his request was just approved. Shaolin looks at her in surprise. The girl explains that the system automatically approves requests from a class president when their advisor is absent. Shaolin realizes that advisor Qin Chuan must have already left for the New World with the principal. Shaolin looks down at his screen and remembers how easily the muscular Wang Dalin was killed during the entrance test. He grits his teeth and thinks that in the principal's eyes, freshmen who cannot enter the New World early will eventually just become cannon fodder. He realizes that no matter what, he absolutely must increase his strength before the upcoming comprehensive exam. Shaolin stands up from the table and waves goodbye to the girl, telling her he has to go. The girl watches him leave and softly whispers, "Good luck to him." In the physical training classroom 4, Chen Dao angrily yells about Shaolin skipping class again. Chen Dao complains that Shaolin is acting completely out of line just because he is an acting class president. Suddenly, Wang Dalin angrily crushes a plastic water bottle in his hand. He growls that if it were not for the school rules, he would definitely kill Shaolin right now. A student steps forward and places his hand on Wang Dalin's shoulder and calms him down, reminding him that the first-year comprehensive exam is coming up soon. He tells Wang Dalin that Xiaolin's privileges mean they can't do anything about him using the room. Inside the classroom, Xiaolin runs on a treadmill. A system screen shows his basic physical training level is at LV2. He breathes heavily and sweats as he pushes himself. After a while, he stops and wipes the sweat from his face with his wristband. He looks at the clock on the wall. He thinks to himself that it's getting late and he should head back to the dormitory. He walks towards the double doors of the classroom. He thinks about buying some healing items with his exchange points. He grabs the door handle and pulls, but it doesn't move. He looks surprised and tries again. He turns around and realizes that someone has locked the door from the outside. He holds the handle and tries to pull it open. The handle clicks, but the door doesn't open. He pushes on the door with his other hand, but it stays shut. He realizes he is locked inside from the outside. He assumes someone locked the door without checking if anyone was still inside, and calls them careless. He steps back from the door and runs his hand through his hair. He grits his teeth and sweats. He realizes curfew is almost here and he will have to sleep in the classroom. Suddenly, there is a loud click, and all the lights in the room turn off. The room becomes completely dark. Xiaolin stands alone in the dark room. He holds his arm and sweats nervously. He laughs awkwardly and says the sudden darkness scared him. He realizes it is just lights out time for the building. Xiaolin complains about the school cutting the power at night, even though they don't look poor. Outside, two young men walk outside together. Chen Yu asks if a freshman acting class monitor is violating the curfew rules and wandering around at night. Han Sen confirms the report came from a freshman named Liang Ziyu. Han Sen insists that a freshman acting class monitor who blatantly breaks the rules must be dealt with severely as a warning. Chen Yu, the head of the second-year students and a member of the disciplinary department, agrees. He notes that the principal is away and the student council president has no time for minor issues. He states that the disciplinary department must hold the line, especially since he also serves as the freshman year head. Han Sen agrees and flatters Chen Yu. They arrive at the training ground. Han Sen offers to go in and do a patrol. He walks toward the building with a sly smile. He thinks to himself about his plan with Liang Ziyu. Liang Ziyu gathers evidence of freshmen breaking rules, and Han Sen steps forward to enforce the law. He plans to extort Xiaolin for his exchange points, thinking it's the perfect time to make a big score. Han Sen pushes open the classroom door. He steps inside the room and sees no one, and looks confused. He asks out loud where the freshman went. Chen Yu steps into the doorway behind him and asks what is wrong. Han Sen stammers and explains that he heard some noise and thought someone was hiding in the room. Behind the door, Xiaolin presses his back against the wall. He holds his breath and stays completely still in the shadow. Han Sen mutters that it is strange because he was sure someone was there. Chen Yu points out that the door was locked from the outside. He says there is no way anyone could be inside and suggests Han Sen heard wrong. Han Sen sweats and nervously laughs. He agrees that it is possible he was just hearing things. He rubs the back of his neck and says they should continue their patrol. As he walks out the door, he thinks to himself in frustration, wondering where else Xiaolin could have gone. Xiaolin watches them leave from his hiding spot behind the door. Xiaolin escapes into the dark forest. He leans against a tree, sweating. He looks relieved and whispers that he almost got caught. He thinks about how freshmen are forbidden from going out at night and knows he will lose points if discovered. He touches his chin and looks suspicious. He realizes it is too coincidental that he got locked in the training ground right before the disciplinary department arrived to patrol his door. He wonders if someone is targeting him or if he is just overthinking. Suddenly, his eyes widen as he looks up at the night sky. He stares at the moon and is shocked to see a second, smaller crescent moon next to it. He remembers the instructor saying the academy was designed to match the normal world. He realizes the new world actually has two moons. He looks up at the glowing moons and whispers that it is magical. He walks slowly through the forest and looks around carefully, knowing he can't go back to the training ground. He thinks to himself that his most urgent task is to find a safe place to hide for the night. Suddenly, a massive blast of white breath shoots past him in the darkness. Xiaolin freezes in place, his eyes wide with shock. A giant purple eye opens slowly right next to him. Xiaolin looks up and sees the massive purple dragon from the entrance ceremony resting under the large trees. He sweats nervously and stares at the giant sleeping beast. The dragon shifts its huge wings in its sleep, making a loud rustling sound. Xiaolin screams at himself to run and quickly turns. He pants heavily and glances back over his shoulder, sweating and hoping the dragon didn't catch up. He thinks to himself that he definitely doesn't want to become a midnight snack. Suddenly, he spots a large house hidden among the trees. He decides to hide inside immediately and runs toward the building and quickly pulls the large wooden door open. slipping inside. He closes the door and leans against it, panting. He thinks it should be safe now because there is no way the dragon can chase him inside the building. He hears a rustling sound and turns his head. He walks out into a large garden filled with plants and animals. He looks around, confused, and wonders aloud what this place is. He is shocked by its size and wonders if it is even a cabbage anymore. He then sees that the fruit glows and has a very sweet smell. He wonders if the strange fruit is edible. He looks at chicken and touches his chin and imagines a fully cooked, golden brown chicken. He thinks about how plump and delicious the bird looks and says he suddenly wants to eat beggar's chicken. The bird looks back at him and lets out a questioning cluck. A massive stream of orange fire shoots out, barely missing Shaolin. He sweats and yells in shock, realizing the chicken can actually breathe fire. The bird flies straight at him. Suddenly, a hand reaches out and grabs the bird firmly by the neck. Shaolin looks surprised and lowers his hand. He asks the person who grabbed the bird who they are. A man asks Shaolin which class he is from. He questions why Shaolin is running around his place at night instead of sleeping in his dormitory, and asks why he is trying to steal his chickens. Shaolin stares at the man and asks who he is. The man clicks his tongue and introduces himself as Song Junlang, the minister of the logistics department. He complains that freshmen are daring enough to barge into his territory without knowing who he is. Song Junlang smirks and notes that Shaolin broke curfew just 2 days after school started. He tightens his grip on the bird's neck and says Shaolin even scared his chicken. He asks how Shaolin plans to compensate him. Shaolin quickly apologizes and explains that he only stumbled in by mistake to hide from the giant dragon outside. He begs Song Junlang to listen to his explanation. He explains how he was locked in the training room and then nearly discovered by 2 guys from the disciplinary department. He then describes running into the forest and being scared by the dragon breathing fire. Song Junlang listens quietly and touches his chin. He tells Shaolin not to worry because that big lizard won't attack him. Shaolin looks shocked, feeling like an arrow just pierced his heart when Song Junlang adds that Shaolin is so weak the dragon wouldn't even be interested in him. Shaolin sweats and thinks to himself, surprised that Song Junlang called the terrifying dragon a big lizard. Song Junlang then casually explains that getting locked in the training ground is just a common trick used by the brats from the disciplinary department. Shaolin looks serious and asks if that means someone is actually trying to set him up on purpose. Song Junlang holds up one finger and explains that exchange points are the hard currency around the academy. He explains that buying equipment, activating the simulation arena, and exchanging for rare resources from the new world all cost a large amount of exchange points. He says that credits are the core metric for advancing to the next grade and entering the new world. He smirks and says that the bastards in the disciplinary department love to play the entrapment game the most. He explains that they first set a student up to break the rules, then step in and offer to settle it privately. They demand a few hundred exchange points as a fine to avoid deducting the student's credits. Shaolin looks disgusted and calls their methods despicable. He thinks to himself that the only person he has a grudge against is Wang Dalin, and he can't believe Wang Dalin hooked up with the disciplinary department just to target him. Song Junlang smiles mischievously at Shaolin. He points out that staying out all night and trespassing in the logistics department will cost Shaolin quite a few points combined. Suddenly, loud thumping sounds come from the door. Song Junlang smiles and says it seems the disciplinary department is dead set on catching Shaolin, as they never used to inspect the logistics department before. He asks Shaolin if he should open the door and let them in so Shaolin can take his punishment. Shaolin sweats slightly and tells Song Junlang that since he exposed the disciplinary department's tricks, he clearly didn't just want to see Shaolin make a fool of himself. Song Junlang smiles widely and calls Shaolin smart. He says he didn't waste his breath talking to him. He touches his chin and asks Shaolin if he knows how to cook. Shaolin looks confused and hesitates, saying he might know a little bit about cooking. He thinks back to his time before the academy, sitting in a chair and casually eating snacks while watching a cooking tutorial for beggar's chicken on his phone. He realizes he has only seen videos and has never actually cooked it himself. Song Junlang tells him that his standards are not high. He offers to handle the group outside and guarantees Shaolin won't lose a single point. He says Shaolin just needs to do a small favor. Song Junlang licks his lips and blushes slightly, admitting he has been craving beggar's chicken for a long time. He says Shaolin must use this bird to make it. Shaolin points at himself in surprise, asking if he really has to make it. Song Junlang shrugs and says Shaolin has 2 options since he is already trapped. He can either go outside and take the punishment, or stay and make the chicken so Song Junlang will smooth everything over. Shaolin sweats and nervously agrees to make the chicken. Song Junlang makes Shaolin confirm that he is voluntarily making the beggar's chicken and was not forced in the slightest. Shaolin looks worried and sweats, feeling a bad premonition, but quickly nods and says it is completely voluntary. Song Junlang points to a large building nearby and tells Shaolin to hide inside and stay quiet while he deals with the people outside. Xiaolin thanks him and quickly runs toward the building. Song Junlang turns around, holding chicken. Chen Yu and Han Sen stand outside the door. Song Junlang leans casually against the doorframe. He smiles and greets Junior Chen Yu, asking if the superstar of the disciplinary department is hungry and thinking of freeloading a meal at his logistics department late at night. Chen Yu adjusts his glasses and calmly explains that they were patrolling and saw the principal's beloved pet acting strangely, so they came to check. He points out that Minister Song is also awake late at night messing around. Song Junlang smiles and asks if they found the reason for the strange behavior. He tells Chen Yu not to meddle in his affairs. Han Sen angrily points at Song Junlang, arguing that the disciplinary department has authority across the entire academy. He states they suspect a freshman is staying out all night, and Minister Song has no right to block their inspection. Song Junlang glares at Han Sen with a dangerous eye and asks if it is his turn to interrupt as a lowly lackey. Song Junlang smiles coldly and tells them they know exactly what the disciplinary department does in secret. He threatens to submit a report directly to the principal for trespassing if they bother him again. Chen Yu glares at Song Junlang and accuses him of only knowing how to use the principal to pressure people. He loudly states that everyone in the academy knows Song Junlang's comprehensive strength rating isn't even at C rank. He adds that without the principal's personal appointment, Song Junlang wouldn't even be qualified to enter the second year, let alone be a minister. He calls Song Junlang a nepotism hire and tells him not to use school rules to teach them how to do things. The two disciplinary members walk away. Inside the building, Xiaolin listens from the shadows. He realizes Chen Yu is very hostile towards Senior Song. He thinks about how Song Junlang's strength isn't even C rank, yet he is a minister personally appointed by the principal. Xiaolin wonders exactly who Song Junlang really is.